All right, so I figured I'd talk about something today that definitely had an impact on me as a kid. That when I sit there and think back about it, I can tie many different influences in my life to one particular event. And that particular event happens to be 9/11. Now, there's plenty of people that were obviously around when 9/11 happened. There's plenty of people that were babies, and there's plenty of people that haven't even been born yet. But for me, I was in the third grade in South Texas, and I was about 8 years old, and my dad had just recently retired from the army, and the way that September 11th went was uh, all the teachers got called out like into the hallway at some point during the day, and my teacher went out in the hallway and then came back, and then we did arts and crafts the rest of the day. So kind of there was no hint that anything had gone on nationally or like some big news event that had occurred. When school day finished, I did the after school care program, so we went to the cafeteria for the school, and it was like a normal day. And then my dad came to pick me and my brother up, and he looked like he was very pissed off. That's my memory of it, as he looked very angry. He came to pick me and my brother up, and we were wondering what he was angry about because we wanted to make sure it wasn't at us. And he's like, "Something really big happened today, and I got to call your godparents." Now, my godfather, uh, my uncle Gene, he worked at the New York Stock Exchange. He was a biker, and my aunt Valerie was also a biker. She worked for Merrill Lynch at the time. And my godfather was my dad's first platoon sergeant at his first duty station when he was in the Air Force, because they were the only two Catholic guys in their unit. And so I ended up my godfather was kind of I think he was Spanish, like Spaniard Spanish, like his family was that. They're from, I think, the north of Spain or whatever it was. They were immigrants, and he grew up in Staten Island, and he eventually joined the Air Force. And when he got out, he became an IT guy working on the computers at the New York Stock Exchange. So he went from radar operator to that. So that was kind of his backstory. But I remember we went home. We didn't watch the news. My dad called my godparents and had a long conversation with them, and I didn't have any indication of what had gone on other than that something had happened until probably the next day. I went to get a copy of the San Antonio Express News. I always went out and I got the newspaper because I wanted to read the comics inside of it. Because this was still kind of the pre-internet phase for me. Like, I knew the internet existed, but like nobody was really using it outside of like computer labs at school. So I went out and I got the newspaper, and there was a photo of firefighters in the rubble of a building. And then, probably on the second or third page, there's an image of just a building with a guy upside down falling through the air. And that was really, that like stuck with me for a while. That really stuck with me. The next couple days at school, we had several school assemblies. The choir sang like patriotic songs and stuff, and there's just a bunch of like spirit things going on at school. Uh, but that kind of threw me into trying into having to be more aware of what was going on in the world. Now, obviously, the Iraq War and everything started up when I was still in elementary school. The invasion of Afghanistan started up when I was still in elementary school, and so we were just kind of in this. There's this kind of like fever that like Americans were in for a while, and my experience of it as a kid was everyone kind of had this fever of like patriotism, and like we're gonna show them folk what done this, like we're gonna show them what for. And it was this kind of attitude that everyone had, and it was every race of people had it. That was the beautiful thing about it. That really had more of an impact on my understanding of what it means to be American, is getting to see every single group of people, every single color and shade of people getting together and being like, fuck those guys. That was the most unity that I had ever experienced. And that was, as a kid, I got to see that. And honestly, it's something that, like, it's something that millennials, I feel like, try to pile into stuff that promotes unity. They really piled hard into the politics because we had the experience of the post 9/11 unity that occurred. But then the conspiracy theories started up. Now, I was very interested in aliens and UFOs, which of course led me to discovering the world of conspiracy theories as an adolescent. And so I was exposed to a little bit more of them than I needed to be. But there is a guy on radio in South Texas named Alex Jones, who's now more famous for things that he's done since that time. But he was a major radio figure, and it was always great. You could just turn him on, and he would just be like amped about just random shit all the time. And it was more for entertainment than it was for actually getting any information from him. And so I knew who Alex Jones was. He was on the radio. I ended up watching a documentary. It was called Loose Change, which came out. We had just gotten a DSL connection, and I remember torrenting it. Which, let me see what year was Loose Change. Loose Change was 2005. So yeah, I was about 11 years old when Loose Change came out, and then of course the Zeitgeist films came out, and that really promoted conspiracy theories to a whole new generation of people. And that was in 2007, so I would have been roughly 13 or 14 at the time that film came out. And I remember it being a thing in high school that, like, a lot of people were like, hey, go see this film. And I watched Zeitgeist, and I'm like, wow, everything's fake, nothing's real. Sorry, I had a long day at work today. But there's a lot of things. And then as I gradually got out of that, as I became an adult, of course, I had to contend with whether or not I was going to join the military, because we had a military tradition in the family. And eventually, I was kind of this hopeless romantic, and eventually I fell into it based on some stuff that Jean-Paul Sartre said about owning warfare and it becoming your sole purpose, like with stuff as a soldier, like the whole concept of war. And I don't know, it seemed cool, so I ended up joining the Army. I'm sure there's a better explanation for it than that. There's probably more reasoning that went into it. I had an understanding that the United States government wasn't necessarily the best force for good. I just had to understand that it is the force that America has for trying to put good into the world. It's just that the good that America can put into the world isn't universally good. There's definitely a lot of drawbacks to everything. But honestly, it was the best that we could do. We were trying to help people, and obviously we toppled Saddam Hussein with the Iraq invasion and introduced decades of sectarian chaos to the people of Iraq. And then of course, Afghanistan collapsed the moment that our soldiers left. The Afghan National Army just stopped fighting and just switched sides as the Taliban started moving on every city throughout Afghanistan as we were leaving. So obviously that whole idea didn't work out. It didn't pan out in the long run. Iraq, I would say, is relatively stable, but it took a lot of negotiations and a lot of the community getting together and trying to work out their differences with shit in order to figure out something politically that everyone could kind of be on board with. And it wasn't necessarily forced secularism. It was that the government institutions would be secular, and they'd try to avoid making as much legislation as possible that would infringe on the particular beliefs or style of Islam of the different communities within Iraq. And then, of course, ISIS happened, which further destabilized stuff. But I think Iraq now is kind of relatively stable. I mean, they don't have that much stuff going on other than the Iran war that's going on right now, with occasional airstrikes and drone strikes inside of their country. But Iraq was viewed as being like the height of the failure of American foreign policy when I was a kid. I remember seeing people just lambast and mock George W. Bush for pushing the country into Iraq. And I remember Obama, the first big thing that he tried to push for was gradually withdrawing all troops from Iraq. Now, did they withdraw all troops? No, we kept soldiers there. It's just that the official ground operations that had started back in 2003 started tapering off, and then it was just kind of maintaining a security presence within Iraq and playing a more advisory role to the Iraqi military. Well, all that stuff happened, shook a lot of people's faiths in the institutions of the United States of America. Shook a lot of people's faith in the presidency, election. What's the word for it? The security of elections and like the validity of elections was challenged by Gore challenging George W. Bush, winning the presidential election in 2000. All of the general response to that definitely diminished people's trust and faith in the institutions of the United States. And then, of course, a lot of boomers grew up in the middle of LBJ and Nixon, who were two of the most corrupt presidents that we've ever had, and got to see all that. Got to see the '70s that resulted after that, after all of the dreams of the flower children withered and died through the 1970s as hippies turned ugly, as everything kind of all this hope for peace and change gradually petered out. But I don't know. I don't know where I was going with this video, but I'm going to go ahead and upload it anyway.